I always meet with couples before I marry them. I always ask them two questions initially. And the two questions are, how long have you known each other? And where did you meet when you met for the first time? I do not ask them that second question for romantic reasons. I ask them that question because I want to know where they were the first time God ever bumped them into each other. That's what I want to know. Because I know who's brought them together. It wasn't Joe choosing Mary. It wasn't Mary choosing Joe. It was God choosing them for each other. There is a verse in the Bible, it's found in Genesis chapter 2. I always get a chuckle out of it when I read it, because in that verse it says God brought Eve to Adam. And I always get a chuckle out of it because they're the only two people on this earth. It wasn't as if there were 500 Eves and God said to Adam, why don't you date around for a while and then come talk to me? It wasn't as if there were 1,000 Adams and God said to Eve, I'll tell you what, Eve, why don't you date around for a while, and after about 2 or 3 years, then you come and talk to me, and we'll decide who's the best one. There's two people on the planet, and God says in the Bible that he brought Eve to Adam, and the implication is that he brought Adam to Eve. Things are changed now, aren't they? There are 7.5 billion people on this planet. And yet whenever I marry a couple, whenever they're standing in front of me, I always say to them, God has brought you together. Nothing has changed. It is the same as it was when Adam and Eve were on this earth. Joe, you're standing next to Mary. God brought Mary to you. Mary, you're standing next to Joe. Joe was brought to you by God. So here's the deal. God knows you backwards and forwards. Joe, standing there, God knows your quirks and your personality and your goals and your aspirations. He knows everything that's happened in your past, Psalm 139. He knows everything that happened in your past that makes you the person standing in front of me today. And God also knows your future. That's also spoken of in Psalm 139. He's got us hemmed in. He knows our past. He knows our future. And then I say to Joe, of the 3 billion females on this planet, God has chosen this lady to be your wife. God knows who would be best in your life. God knows who would best fill the needs in your life. And since God knows the future, he knows what the future brings. And he knows that when this future event happens, of all the ladies on this earth, he wants this woman on this day, whom you're marrying, he wants this lady to be by your side. There are any number of married couples that an event happens in their life, maybe a year after they're married, maybe 10, maybe 20, maybe 30 years down the road. And an event happens, and at that precise moment, they will say, now I know why I married you. Because you can't imagine going through that event without that person standing by your side. I tell Joe, there ought never be a day that you don't look at Mary and somewhere or other in her face you see God's hand. And then I turn to Mary and I say, Mary, God knows you, your quirks, your personality, your goals, your aspirations, everything about your past, everything that's going to happen in your future. And this guy standing next to you, God has chosen him to be your husband, figuring that he can best meet the needs that exist in your life. And I say to Mary, ought never be a day that you don't look at Joe and somewhere or other in his face you see God's hand. There's a chapter in the Bible that I always have read at every wedding I ever do, and that's 1 Corinthians 13. It's the love chapter. Love is kind, it's patient, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs, it does not look after its own good, but after the good of the other person. I always have it read because it tells you how to protect the gift that God has brought into your life. It tells you how to protect your husband. It tells you how to protect your wife. Love is kind, it's patient, not easily angered, keeps no record of wrongs. If God has brought this most precious gift into your life, standing next to you on the day you're getting married, then you want to know what to do with that gift. You can't always love that person, okay? It's just not possible. But there is one thing you can do. You can always protect them. Love always trusts, it always hopes, it always perseveres, it always protects the one who is loved. The world doesn't really care all that much about you. Your mom and dad certainly do, but the world doesn't. You have to have a person in your life that when you come walking into that apartment, that house, that townhouse, that tent, wherever you're living, you have to have a person that when you walk into that environment, you know that you are loved. That's why God's brought you together. That's why He doesn't leave it to you and me to decide who we're going to marry. I always view it as a most sacred event. I always want to take off my shoes when I do a wedding because it's really, really, really holy ground. God has chosen this person to whom you are about to be married. Just like when the babies come, that's extraordinarily sacred territory. The person you marry, God's fingerprints all over it. When that baby comes, God's fingerprints all over it. Understand then that the person you marry or the significant other in your life or some dear friend that God has brought into your life, understand who's brought that person. It's God Himself. And understand that He's done it because He knows you. He wants you to be protected. He wants you to be uplifted. He wants you to grow in your understanding of what life is all about. And that is why He's brought this person to you. Doesn't the Bible say 2 is better than 1? If one falls and there's no one else, who lifts you up? But if there are 2, you can be lifted up and you can be strengthened. If you're married, cherish your spouse. If you have a significant other, if you have a dear friend in your life, cherish them. They are gifts that have come from God. In His holy name, amen.